Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on 5, and I'm with Dale Johnson, who is the editor at ESPN. How you doing, Dale? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, mate. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Obviously, the start of the season, there's a lot to talk about. And to be honest with you, VAR is always a topic, right? It's been a topic last week. It's going to be a topic next week. It's going to be a topic during the course of the season. But I wanted to speak to a man such as yourself who knows the ins and outs. Now, you've been speaking, is it with the Premier League in order to find out what it's like what the plans are for it this season?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, at the start of every season, the Premier League meet with several journalists to really explain how they're going to try and do things and what people should expect, so that when the matches start, that we can sort of give a bit of insight into how things are supposed to be going, and also then we know whether things are going right or not, which invariably people obviously think they're not going right when the decisions are going against their team or decisions aren't going for their team.
If you compare VAR within the last 2 seasons, have you seen improvement?
I think it's difficult to say improvement. I think there are many issues with it, mainly in terms of, as everybody hits the phrase clear and obvious, as we all know. It's all about interpreting that and when to intervene and when not to intervene. And I don't think there's been any real improvement on that front. I think there are still issues with VARs really understanding what that real point of intervention is. And to be fair, I mean, while Premier League has got its own unique problems, the other European leagues are also having issues. They're just on the different points, really. So I think the issue is always going to be when we overcome clear and obvious, and it's going to take a while. And I don't think things have particularly improved on that front over the last 2 years.
Excuse my lack of knowledge in this part. When it comes to Stockley Park, are we still contacting Stockley Park for the information to be sent back, or are we done with that?
And what do you mean by that, sorry?
Because, you know, when VAR, there's a decision before they had to contact Stockley Park in order to get the information for it to go back.
Yeah, that's still the exact same way. Yeah, still Stockley Park is still the central hub for all VAR decisions. It's where all the VARs are situated, and it's where the Premier League match centre is. So they're right next door to where all the VARs are. So it's basically the Premier League's match day centre where everything happens.
And in your opinion, does that work, it being done from Stockley Park? Because I don't understand why you have to contact Stockley Park in order to get confirmation when you could have people right on the sidelines with screens.
Yeah, so one of the main benefits of having it centrally is you can have VARs who do more than one game a day. So if you're sending VARs to the stadium for every single match, then you're having to say, and you can remember, this isn't just a VAR, this is a Hawkeye operator who does the replays, and it's also the second VAR. So you're talking 3 members of staff that then you'd have to fire out to every single of the 10 grounds that are hosting games that weekend. Whereas, especially on a Saturday when you might have 7 or 8 games. So the thinking is if you're having it in one central hub, then that means that people can do them more than one game. And also it makes it much easier after a match has been completed for the referees that have been involved in those games to be debriefed and talk about the decisions they've made. Whereas obviously if these VARs are actually at the ground, then there'll be a delay in that process. So the Premier League was one of the first really to do it centrally, but everyone else is doing the same. UEFA have gone through a central hub. UEFA used to do Champions League games from the grounds, but now they realise it's just better in terms of managing the whole VAR process to have it in one place.
So what is the update now with the audience being able to hear live conversations? Because, you know, that's what a lot of people would like for the audience, or for someone to be listening to the conversation between the linesman and the referee in order for us to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to hear a couple of incidents from last season before the season started where we heard the full audio process in terms of when the incident takes place, to the VAR talking about him checking it, to the VAR.
For which team? Sorry, for which teams?
One of them was a handball involving Burnley, I can't remember which game, and the other one we saw was Pogba's red card against Liverpool when he got sent off for the high challenge. So we heard the actual whole process, the referee going to the monitor, and exactly what they were saying to each other. And it was brilliant. And you had a far better understanding of what was going on and how it all works. Now, also last week, Richard Masters, the CEO of the Premier League, had alluded in a couple of interviews that we were going to start to hear the audio. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't really the case. It was it was more of an aim and a goal to eventually hearing this audio. But right now, it's not going to happen in the Premier League. It doesn't happen in the other major leagues. There are really, really strict rules imposed by FIFA on when this audio can be released. You can't do it live in games. It can only be after the event and only for educational purposes. Now, they do it in Major League Soccer, but even that's like 6 days later until you get to hear a review of all the VAR decisions. But I think, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time until we get there. Now, the Premier League say they would like to get to a situation where we do start to hear a few incidents later this season, but I wouldn't expect us to be hearing it in Match of the Day or something like that. It will come a few days later when it gets released to the public.
Now, there was a survey done early last year, right? And only 26% of fans were happy with the idea of VAR. Now, basically, the majority of the people want it scrapped. That's 74% of people want it scrapped. In your opinion, do you think it makes the game better or worse?
I think in its current form, I think there are too many issues with people getting on board with it. And until you get the fans on board with it, because as you say, there was that one survey that said only 26% of fans wanted it. There was actually another one a couple of months earlier, which was far more in favour of it. The one with the 26% was a Football Supporters Federation poll of season ticket going fans. So obviously that will be weighted in a certain way. But until you get the fans on side whereby they can hear the audio, whereby they understand what's happening and they believe in the process, then I don't think anyone's going to consider it to be truly good for the game, because obviously the delays we have and the uncertainty about what's happening, certainly for the fans in the stadium, is a major issue. Now, things should speed up with offside. We'll see it in the Champions League with the semi-automated offside system which is coming in. But yeah, it just needs to be speeded up and better communication, so whereby fans don't think when a goal is scored, this is going to be ruled out. And I think that loss of immediate emotion is, or fear of the loss of that immediate emotion, is something which long term needs to be fixed. And
you've been attending the meetings. What are the major changes that are being made in regards to VAR for this season?
Well, this season, I don't think you're going to see a lot that's changed. One of the major things that they're still drumming home is that they want a really high threshold for intervention. So as we saw at the weekend, we didn't have one single VAR overturn, which is surprising, really. The average is 1 every 3 games. And so to not have a single one when there were certainly cases where it could have happened, that makes you think that maybe the VARs are really trying not to make any interventions when it might have been more obvious. Now, the problem here is the reason why that happens is people seem to think that the monitor, or people tend to think that the monitor is there for the referee to have another look. But that's not the case. The monitor's there actually for the referee to change the decision. So when the referee goes over, then their perception is already going to be that they've made a mistake. Because that bar is so high, the thought is they're only sending the referee over when it's a definite mistake. Now, this isn't going to change, unfortunately. I personally think that it's too high. There needs to be a bit more subjectivity for the VARs to really make put their own opinions on the incidents, such as the Manchester United game on Sunday, when Brighton really should have got a penalty for the foul on Danny Welbeck. Now, I think that if the Premier League weren't persisting with this high bar, then there's a much greater chance that that type of incident would have been sent to the monitor and would have led to a penalty. Now, in terms of anything else changing, not much really. The Premier League are actually more focused on limiting time wasting. And there's obviously been a lot in the papers about this the last week. The ball was only in play for 55 minutes on average last season. So they brought in the multi-ball system to try and cut down on time wasting. But in terms of that being able to be influenced by VAR, there's nothing that really can be done. But
so am I correct to think that as soon as it goes out, you've got another ball coming in really quickly?
Yeah, that's right. So there's 10 balls. There's obviously the match ball that they're playing with. There's a ball with the 4th official, and then there are 8 balls all around the pitch with a ball boy or a ball assistant with each one. So, like you say, when the ball goes out, then it should be able to come straight back into play. Now, obviously, that's only part of the way to get around it. When the ball goes out and the ball's passed to a player, the referee still needs to ensure that the goal kick's taken quickly, the free kick's taken quickly, or the throwing's taken quickly. So the multi-ball system is really only a tool to speed up the game. That's not going to stop players going down injured or the goalkeepers taking a little bit too long over the.
Or the Jose Mourinho situation where he has the ball boys pre-prepped to take extra time.
Absolutely. But the interesting thing on that is the Premier League have said that if the home team start to abuse the system when they're in front, for instance, by only giving the ball back to one team or being slow or whatever, then the referee does have the right to remove the multiple system and go back to one ball. Now, that doesn't particularly solve the time wasting problem, but I suppose it's just a case of making sure it's fair.
Okay. And also, for me, one of the biggest issues when I would be looking at the VAR line just didn't look straight, man. You know, it looked like it was a bit clunky. It looked like I don't know. I'm just not feeling the line. Has there been anything done to address that issue? Because it can be confusing when you're looking at it. You know, how can we be looking at it on a screen? Sometimes screenshots, sometimes on a screen, and we're still not sure whether the person is onside or offside. How do they make it clear, even for the viewer like myself?
So you see, offside has been one of the biggest issues for me on my social media account, in time to explain to people that these lines that you're seeing on the pitch are all computer generated, so they can't not be straight. They're all mapped to the pitch. So whereas the human eye may perceive something slightly different in terms of them not being lined up with the goal line, etc., they are actually straight. But the problem is that we can't view a 2D picture in the same way that we need to see players who may be on an angle, whether they're offside or onside. Now, this has always been one of the major issues that FIFA has tried to overcome in terms of the visualizing of offside, but also the speeding up of offside. Now, we're not going to see this fixed in the Premier League this season or any major leagues, because it's a brand new technology, as just mentioned earlier, the semi-automated offside technology. Now, we're going to see that in the Champions League and at the World Cup, and that totally changes the way these offsides are done, because at the moment we've got a lack of accuracy and a lack of visualization for fans. So now, rather than the new system will be based on artificial intelligence, and it'll be so much quicker and so much more accurate. So at the moment, we're using the TV cameras, which are only 50 frames a second, whereas this new system, which has a chip in the ball, will be 500 a second. So it's going to be far faster, far more accurate. And now, more importantly, onto your point in terms of the visualization, there's going to be a Hawkeye style 3D animation, which is very much like goal line technology or the line calls in tennis, whereby it will create an image and it will send the camera in line with the two players who the attacker and the defender, and it will show exactly where they're offside and by how much. So at the moment, say for instance, we're looking at a defender and an attacker going from midfield, running through on goal, and the camera is actually on the edge of the penalty area. So we can't tell whether who's in front of each other really, and we're relying on these lines that have been drawn and trusting those lines that have been drawn to tell us that a player is onside or a player is offside. Now, this new system is going to remove that, and it's going to move the camera in line with these two players. And Pierluigi Collina, who's FIFA's head of referees, he absolutely believes in the system, and he thinks it's going to bring this trust in for offside, which has been totally lacking in the whole VAR process. And offside is obviously such a central part of the game, and if people don't trust the offside decisions, then that sort of affects the whole image of VAR. So if FIFA has got this right, and we'll see in the Champions League, as I said, from the group stage, then it will make a huge difference, certainly in time and perception.
Finally, my last question is, are the referees comfortable now with the VAR system? I mean, have you heard anything specifically from referees? How do they feel about it? Because surely it's not fun getting hammered every single weekend. They don't enjoy it, I'm sure of it, unless, I don't know, I'm sure some referees might, but the majority of them won't be happy, right? What is the comfort system now with them?
Well, I think all referees are happy to have VAR. I think they all know that there's teething problems, and I think one of the biggest issues for the referees themselves is, while they've got VAR, they need to really have trust in in the VAR himself when they're the match referee. So really, the success of themselves as a referee is partly now being placed upon somebody else completely. So I think they would rather that this whole system, which is going to take years to perfect in terms of what is clear and obvious and what isn't clear and obvious, I'm sure they'd rather that was fixed a lot quicker, and they'd rather mistakes weren't made. But unfortunately, do. I mean, there was a decision in Germany at the weekend where a Schalke player was sent off for he had his studs in an opponent's calf. Now that's been said it's a mistake now. So, for instance, it's still happening in other leagues whereby you're getting decisions given via VAR, which affect a game, because it was 0-0 at that point and Schalke lost 3-1 in the end. So there are still issues everywhere whereby it's not perfect, but referees still want it to be there, but it's going to take time for it to be fully fixed.
Dale, thank you very much for your time. This is Dale, the editor at ESPN. He will be joining us to discuss some controversial decisions this season. Please make sure you check out Dale and his social media links. They're all in the description. Top man, Dale, we'll be speaking again soon, right?
Good to speak to you.
For sure. Joel Beya signing out. Peace.